So after completing the pericardium, we shall move on to external features of the heart. Let's talk about the location of the heart. It is important to know that where in the thoracic cage heart is located. It is not only clinically significant, it is also important from examination point of view. More importantly, it is a pet question, viper question of the seniors during the final stage of the thorax and in the professional exams. So location of the heart. Heart is about the size of a fist. It is a muscular organ that weighs about 250 to 300 grams. From anterior and posterior views, heart appears to be trapezoidal in shape. It lies obliquely with its long axis passing downwards and to the left towards the apex. So the long axis of the heart within the thoracic cage is directed obliquely towards the apex. Due to the rotation of the heart in the development, in the intra-embryonic life during the development of the fetus, due to the rotation of the heart, the right side chambers of the heart, they are located more anterior to the to their counterparts on the left side of the heart, as well as the atria are located more right to their respective ventricles. एम्ब्रोलॉजी में ड्यूरिंग द डेवलपमेंट जो हार्ट डेवलप कर रहा होता है तो वो रोटेट कर जाता है. उसकी रोटेशन होने की वजह से, उसके घूमने की वजह से होता क्या है कि जो उसके राइट साइड के चेम्बर्स होते हैं हार्ट के, वो कम टू लाई मोर एंटीरियर टू दी चेम्बर्स ऑन द लेफ्ट साइड. इसका ये मतलब है कि राइट साइड पे जो राइट एट्रियम और राइट वेंट्रिकल हैं, दे आर लोकेटेड मोर एंटीरियरली देन द लेफ्ट एट्रियम एंड लेफ्ट वेंट्रिकल. इसी तरह जो एट्रिया होते हैं, दे आर located more towards the right side of the body than their respective ventricles. Now let's move on to the layers of the heart. This is another diagram showing the location of the heart, which is located within the thoracic cavity between the two lungs, right and left, above the diaphragm, between the two lungs, within the cavity, covered by the pericardium. Layers of the heart, they are called the epicardium, myocardium, and endocardium. Epicardium, we discussed with the pericardium that the visceral layer of the serous pericardium, which was closely adhered to the superior or external surface of the heart, is also called epicardium. So here in this diagram, you can see this layer shown in the yellow, closely adhered with the outer surface of the heart, is called epicardium, which is basically the visceral layer of the serous pericardium. Then epicardium is the outermost layer of the heart. Deep to it is the myocardium. Myocardium is a thick helical middle layer composed of cardiac muscle. So myocardium, as the name is indicating, myo referring to the muscle. So it is basically a muscular layer which is present in the form of spirals and whorls, and it constitutes the middle layer of the heart. Further inside to myocardium is the layer which is called endocardium. Endo means inner, on the inside. So within the cavity of the heart, the lining is called endocardium. It is a thin layer comprising or lined by endothelium and subendothelial connective tissue. And it also covers the valves of the heart. Now, next in the external features of the heart is a very important topic, which is called skeleton of the heart. Most of us, we realize that heart is just a muscular organ. Yes, it is right. It is a muscular pump, but it does have a skeleton, which is formed by the dense collagen fibers. So the skeleton of the heart is fibrous in nature, and it is present within the heart to provide it firm support and to separate the upper two atria from the ventricles. This dense collagenous framework of the heart is in the form of a ring that is in the form of figure or number 8. So there is a number 8 shaped fibrous ring that surrounds the atrioventricular orifices, that is the mitral valve and the tricuspid valve, the openings between the atria and the ventricles. Then we have an interventricular septum, which has two parts, a membranous and muscular, out of which membranous part also gets attached to the dense collagenous framework of the heart. And then we have the pulmonary valves in the form of aortic and pulmonary trunk. Their bases also get attached to the dense collagenous framework of the heart. Let's see other two diagrams in order to completely understand the location and the attachments of the different structures with the skeleton, fibrous skeleton of the heart. So here you can see the two openings, mitral and tricuspid, the right and left valves that open between the right and left atria into the right and left ventricles respectively. Then we have an opening for the aorta, and then we have orifice or opening for the pulmonary trunk. All these four orifices, their bases, their roots, they get attached over the fibrous skeleton in the form of an 8-shaped fibrous ring. Again, this diagram is showing you the attachment of the whorls and spirals of the muscle of the heart, as well as bases of the mitral and tricuspid valves, aortic and the pulmonary valves being attached to the fibrous skeleton, which is in the form of the figure on number 8. These trigone areas, they basically represent the connection between the two rings. So the areas where two rings, they come in close contact, their attachment, the areas of those attachments, those connections are called the fibrous trigone areas. Then there are some other sulci or depressions present over the external surface of the heart, or some depressions can be seen over the external surface of the heart with the naked eye. So one of those depressions or grooves is called atrioventricular groove. The name is self-explanatory. The depression present between the atria and the ventricles is called atrioventricular groove or atrioventricular sulcus or coronary sulcus, because coronary arteries run into these circles. Similarly, a depression or a groove is present separating the two ventricles, right and left, on both the anterior and posterior surface of the heart. This groove or depression or sulcus is labeled as इंटरवेंट्रिकुलर सेप्टम। सो वो डिप्रेशन या ग्रूव जो दो वेंट्रिकल्स के बीच में मौजूद है एंटीरियर एंड पोस्टीरियर सर्फेसेस ऑफ द हार्ट पे, उसको हम कहते हैं इंटरवेंट्रिकुलर ग्रूव। इंटर मतलब बिटवीन द टू वेंट्रिकल्स। और जो कोरोनरी सल्कस या एट्रियोवेंट्रिकुलर सल्कस या वो डिप्रेशन जो मौजूद होता है एट्रियम और वेंट्रिकल के बीच में, उसको कहते हैं कोरोनरी सल्कस, क्योंकि उसके अंदर कोरोनरी आर्टरीज भी रन करती हैं। और इसको दो स्ट्रक्चर्स की मुनासबत से भी इसको नाम दिया जाता है, जो इनको सेपरेट कर रहा होता है एट्रियम को फ्रॉम द वेंट्रिकल, उसकी मुनासबत से भी इस सल्कस को नाम दिया जाता है एज एट्रियोवेंट्रिकुलर सल्कस। Now let's move on to the apex and base of the heart. These two terms are very famous in relation to the heart. They are commonly asked in the MCQs, commonly asked by the professors in the viva of the stage, as well as in the professional exams, and later in the clinical years of medicine. Apex and base of the heart, they become of great significance in relation to the cardiovascular diseases. So let's see what is apex of the heart. Apex of the heart is located infralaterally, inferiorly and laterally, that is away or far away from the midline of the body. And it is formed by the left ventricle. It is formed by the left ventricle. So where is it directed? It is directed inferiorly and laterally and formed mainly by the left ventricle. It can be located on the external surface of the thoracic cage at the left fifth intercostal space in the adults. Apex of the heart is very important because it actually does not move. It remains motionless during the cardiac cycle of the heart, systole and diastole. This portion of the heart, apex of the heart, does not move. It remains motionless. What about base? Base of the heart lies posteriorly opposite the apex of the heart. It is mainly formed by the left atrium. This whole part that you can see, it is also represented by the blue arrow. This whole part is the left atrium, which is located more posteriorly than the right atrium, and it also forms it is also the base of the heart, or the posterior surface of the heart. And into the left atrium, you can see the 4 pulmonary veins opening into the left atrium, which are actually bringing the oxygenated blood from the lungs into the heart through the right atrium. Left atrium, sorry. Left atrium mainly lies facing the vertebral bodies, 6th thoracic vertebral body up till 9th thoracic vertebral body. These vertebral levels are very important to know because they are often given in the MCQs portion of the university's written examination. Now moving on to the borders and surfaces of the heart. We have 4 surfaces and 4 borders of the heart. In some books, 3 borders are also given, but famously we know that heart can have 4 borders. So let's see what are the names of the borders and what structures are forming those borders. So the borders of the heart include a right border. Here in the red shown the right border, in the green inferior border, in the yellow we have left border, and in the blue we are being shown the superior border. So we have a right and left border, superior and inferior borders. Right border is slightly convex. It is convex, and it is formed by the right atrium. Here you can see the auricle of the right atrium. What is auricle? Auricle is the ear-like extension, ear-like projection of the right atrium. Auricle का मतलब होता है ear, external ear, जो हमारा कान होता है उसकी शेप की मुनासबत से इस हिस्से का नाम रखा गया है ऑरिकल। और ये बेसिकली होता क्या है, ये एक प्रोजेक्शन होती है, एक फॉरवर्ड प्रोजेक्शन होती है राइट एट्रियम की। किस शेप की? ईयर शेप की। सो जो ये राइट बॉर्डर है हार्ट का, ये कन्वेक्स होता है और ये मेनली बनाता है कौन सा स्ट्रक्चर? राइट एट्रियम। Right atrium, the part of the right atrium extending between the superior vena cava above and inferior vena cava below. Then we have a left border. Left border, as you can see in this diagram, is slightly obliquely to almost vertical. Slightly oblique to almost vertical. And it is mainly formed by the left ventricle inferiorly. In most of its majority of the portion, especially the inferior portion of the left border, is formed by the left ventricle. And partly in the upper part, it is formed by the left auricle. And what is left auricle? It is again an ear-like projection of the left atrium. Then we have a superior border. Here in the blue is mentioned the superior border. Superior border is formed by the superior aspects of the right and left atria, as well as their auricles, right and left. And one can see the great vessels emerging from the superior border. And what vessels are included or labeled as great vessels? Superior vena cava, pulmonary trunk, and aorta. Then we have an inferior border. Inferior border is shown here in the green outline. It is almost horizontal and mainly it is formed in majority of its portion by the right ventricle and partly by the left ventricle. This is the left ventricle, this is the right ventricle, and in between these two ventricles is running a depression called interventricular groove or interventricular sulcus. It is present on both the surfaces of the heart, anterior and posterior. So the borders of the heart include a right border, a left border, superior and inferior borders. Right border is convex, left border is oblique to almost ventricle, superior border is slightly oblique, and inferior border is almost horizontal. Moving on to the surfaces of the heart. Heart has four surfaces: anterior, inferior, right pulmonary surface, and left pulmonary surface. The anterior surface has another name which is called sternocostal surface. Why is it called sternocostal surface? Because it lies just inside to the sternum and costal cartilages and anterior parts of the ribs. It is mainly formed by the right ventricle. So this surface of the heart is called anterior surface, and since it lies in close proximity to the sternum and anterolateral side of the anterolateral aspect of the thoracic cage, that includes the costal cartilages and ribs, it is named as sternocostal surface. Then we have an inferior surface. Inferior surface has another name which is called diaphragmatic surface. Diaphragmatic surface is hence named because you know from the previous lecture on the pericardium, diaphragmatic surface of the heart along with the pericardium is in close relation or fused with the central tendon of the diaphragm. So since inferior surface of the heart is located or is lying on the upper surface of the diaphragm, it is named accordingly as diaphragmatic surface. It is mainly formed by the left ventricle and partly by the right ventricle. So together this surface is labeled as diaphragmatic surface. The right pulmonary surface is formed mainly by the right atrium. Here again right auricle is showing and behind it is the right atrium. So all of this structure, right atrium, forms the right pulmonary surface. Left pulmonary surface is formed mainly by the left ventricle. Left pulmonary surface is mainly formed by the left ventricle, and it is this surface which leaves a depression in the form of notch on the left lung. ये जो है इस डायग्राम में आपको दिखाया हुआ है लेफ्ट लंग, एंड दिस वन इज द राइट लंग. You can note down that how deep is the cardiac impression on the left lung. और ये लेफ्ट लंग पे हार्ट का कौन सा हिस्सा अपना इंप्रेशन छोड़ता है? लेफ्ट पल्मोनरी सरफेस ऑफ द हार्ट, जो कि कौन बनाता है? लेफ्ट वेंट्रिकल. So I hope the location, layers, skeleton, sulci, apex, base, surfaces and borders of the heart are so far clear to all of you. So this was all about the external features of the